What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Wednesday night installment of the Executives of Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Matty Kiwoom, joined by Seth Diewold. What is going on, brother? We're just got back from Detroit.
Oh, yeah, we just got back from Detroit where the coverage was just absolutely insane. I mean, all 257 picks from number 1 to 257, Mr. Irrelevant, were covered. And I know I'm biased, so this audience might roll their eyes at this, but to be honest, I don't know if there's people in the fantasy football community that quite cover prospect 1 to prospect 257 better than Matty Kiwoom and Cody Carpentier, which is why I'm lucky enough to join these guys in their quest to basically just take over the fantasy football world and the community. That's the goal. I mean, we're not shooting for the moon. We're shooting for the next galaxy, man. Like, this is what we're here for. And that coverage, I was watching some of it back last night, just as good as it gets with you and Alex Dunlap and like the boys at Roster Watch too. I mean, are phenomenal. I mean, Cody's a part of Roster Watch right now, and I'm rambling, but the point is, you need to go follow these guys on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's hands down, and we're going to be there next year for the 2025 draft. And guess what? The analysis for the 2025 draft starts right now, and I'm sure you guys are going to have the prospects covered from now until the 2025 draft. When you're in this, that's just what you do, and that's who Cody is, and that's who Matty is. So I couldn't be more excited to do shows like this where we're talking rookie rankings, and just, spending time with you and learning more about these prospects has just been a phenomenal process so far. So I can't wait to take this to the next galaxy, man. Fuck the moon. We're going to the next galaxy.
We're off to the next galaxy. The draftrankings.com. That's where you need to be. Like Cody says, it's a work in progress. It's just the Patreon now, but we're building it out. We're working on it. It's Seth, me, and Cody. We're here to stay. And we're here on the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Make sure you're smashing the like button, smashing the subscribe button. Leave a comment here in the show, because today we're talking none other, Seth, than Dynasty Rookie Ranks. We now have the teams linked to the players. The profiles are rostered, and we are very, very excited to dive into that. But before I do, I just got to take a quick second. So I want to talk about something that's happening to me on Sunday. I just want to take a quick second before we dive into the rookies. So onemission.org they're an organization that is raising money for children with cancer. And this Sunday, May 5th, they're doing the One Mission Buzz Off, which is a chance to shave your head for a good cause. So the mullet, ladies and gents, the mullet is on its way out Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning. I'm going to be heading up to Gillette Stadium to be a part of such a great cause, the onemission.org Buzz Off. And if you'd like to donate, feel free. Anything will help. Obviously, it's a great cause. We'll put the link in the bio. You can hit me on X at Matty Kiwoom. I can get you that link, and let's get some money for a great cause. So I just want to start off on some fire before we get into some fire rookie takes. So Seth is over on the draftrankings.com. Seth handled the 1 QB half point PPR rookie win sheet. I tackled the 1 quarterback PPR rookie win sheet. So we're pretty, you and I have been tasked by covering the single QB leagues. So head over to the draftrankings.com, subscribe to the Patreon, and you can get access to mine, to Seth's, and Cody's Superflex rookie win sheet. So today we're just going to go back and forth. We're going to ask each other questions about our process, about our ranks, all that good stuff. So I'll get it kicked off here. I'm looking at your win sheet right now, Seth, and I want to start right here and right here because I'm looking right now. I'm looking at your win sheet. I'm seeing a first rounder behind 2 second rounders and just above a third rounder in the draft, Ricky Pearsall. So you got Ricky Pearsall just ahead of Malachi Corley, who was the first pick or the second pick in the third round to the New York Football Jets. So talk about that, and why did you go Ricky Pearsall over Malachi Corley, and why is it so close?
Well, Ricky Pearsall's not in a great situation right now because of who's in front of him. I mean, you're in a situation with George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel right now. Now,
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah,
it's not great.
It's not great, but we still have the post June 1st shit to cipher out. So there's a real possibility that the 49ers are waiting until the post June 1st window is, passed. Maybe that's when they trade Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. It kind of looks like they're more interested in trading Deebo. A buddy of mine who's a big 49ers fan who's super plugged in thinks that the drafting of Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing might signal a shift in the 49ers scheme just a little bit as far as their passing game goes, not their running game, because Shanahan is always going to be that one-cut zone scheme with McCaffrey. I mean, why would you ever change that? Obviously.
Right.
But Purdy is a better arm talent than Jimmy Garoppolo ever was. And people just need to get that out of their mind. Like, Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback with great processing speed. He's Shanahan's wet dream of a quarterback that he never thought he would ever draft with the last pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy what kind of luck that they have. And so these picks, I think, are signaling that, like, a change. Like Deebo Samuel, what's he good at? Very good at catching the ball close to the line of scrimmage and just going. The yak monster. I mean, we had another one of those in Malachi Corley too. But for me, I think that this Pearsall situation right now, I mean, now's probably a good time to get in on Pearsall, because likely these 49ers are going to trade, one of these wide receivers, or they're looking to their draft. I mean, teams don't lie to you in the NFL draft. Why would they take Pearsall in the first round if they didn't have a plan to use him, right? So now he's valued a little bit lower. If Deebo gets traded, if Ayuk gets traded, his value automatically goes up with one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. So I have him a little bit lower. I was going to ask you about him as well. So I think this is a good transition, because I'm looking at your sheet. Again, this is one quarterback PPR. You have Pearsall a lot lower than I do. I mean, you still have him ahead of Malachi Corley, but Troy Franklin is above him. Obviously, Jalen Polk is above him, but you also have Javon Baker ahead of Ricky Pearsall. So why don't you talk about Ricky Pearsall? I'll throw it right back to you.
That's fair, because when I was going through my win sheet, I'm like, dang, I'm pretty harsh here on two round one wide receivers. And it's for everything you just expressed. I mean, our rankings are fluid. Our process is fluid. If they get rid of one or two of those wide receivers, of course, I'm going to be more excited. But if they don't, he's fifth at best on a pecking order that would just love to run the football 40 times a game if it meant they could win all their games. If the NFL wasn't what it is now, I think Shannon would continue that one cut and go zone scheme that would just dominate. They just got another running back who has size and speed to be, maybe the in between the 20s type of rusher for the Niners. They're just ready to cook. And I just don't think that in fantasy, Ricky Pearsall is going to see all that much volume. And I never thought I'd say this, Seth. After as much as I shit all over Troy Franklin, I cannot believe that I have Troy Franklin over him. But Troy Franklin went to the nuts landing spot, the best place he could have gone to the Denver Broncos, and pair up with Bo Nix. And for me, it's just, why reach at the end of the first, early second for Ricky Pearsall in rookie drafts when you can wait till the end of the second, early third and get Roman Wilson?
Yeah, no, Roman Wilson also had the nuts landing spot with Pittsburgh, and that quarterback situation. I mean, it could be. I mean, with Russell Wilson, I project Russell Wilson to start. Although I was doing some dynasty nerd shit last night, and I'm not going to get too far off track here, but am I seeing this right, that Justin Fields is way ahead of Russell Wilson in the dynasty ADP streets right now? And I know not a ton of dynasty startup drafts have happened, but I'm just here to tell you that Justin Fields has a lot of work to do if he's going to gain the trust of Mike Tomlin.
So in the midst of our travels on Sunday and the tiredness I went through on Monday, I wasn't as coherent in terms of my sleeper attention. And I was auto-drafted in one of my startups. And the queue is so broken, it had Justin Fields as the top-rated player in the second round. You
got auto-drafted Justin Fields in the second round.
Yep. So now I've had to adjust and keep pushing forward.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. I mean,
yes,
I feel like that's a traumatic experience for a dynasty gamer.
Oh, brother. Traumatic isn't even the word. It's worse.
Just completely violated by the completely inept sleeper ADP. I mean, come on.
For real. I mean, just destroyed by now. The ramifications of that draft pick, I had to take Brock Purdy with the following pick to level it off. And then I ended up going Drake May because that was the 3 quarterbacks I wanted. And then I just had to live with Justin Fields. But hey, it is what it is. We're Sharks here on the Executives of Fantasy Football. We only swim forward. I'm looking at your draft sheet here right now, and I got a question for you. You have Jalen Wright as a 3rd round pick. He's after Marshawn Lloyd and after Blake Corum. So my question for you is, what gives?
I like those 2 spots better than most people, especially Marshawn Lloyd. Like if you look at that Josh Jacobs contract, it's really just a 1, maybe a 2-year deal. I think there's a cap hit. Forgive me, I'm just going off the top of my head, of maybe $8 or $9 million after year 1.
They can get out after this year.
They can get out.
The guaranteed money is just this year.
Yeah, so I think they can get out after year 1, and Marshawn Lloyd in that offense is going to be the RB2. I know Josh Jacobs been a workhorse. He's been probably the most disrespected, underrated fantasy running back. But you look at his yards per carry, and I know yards per carry is not everything, but it was not great last year, which is probably a reason why the Raiders let him walk in free agency, and that they're going with Zamir White, Dylan Lobby, and Alexander Madison. I mean, think about that for a second.
I know.
You move on from a running back, and you would assume Josh Jacobs would think, oh, like who they bringing in? Saquon, or like who's going to replace me, man? And it's Zamir White and it's Dylan Lobby, who that's another player that maybe we'll talk about, maybe not, but that landed well with Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
So this is another team with a Shanahan disciple in that coach I can't think of right now. He looks like one of our friends, but Shanahan disciple at coach, loves to run the ball. Jordan Love, ascending offense, only Josh Jacobs ahead of him. So this is more of a pick for 2025. But Jalen, and to speak on Jalen Wright for a second, like you have a young, I know how we all feel about Devon Achane here. I'm not a huge fan because of his volatility. He's a perfect best ball pick, not this year because the ADP is just outrageous. But he's there and he's young and he's in the way. So is Raheem Mostert, who I screwed up on a video that I was making. I kept referring to Raheem Mostert as Raheem Morris for some reason.
Dude, me too. At the draft, I did the same thing.
What was that? Like, I don't know what. Like, we just have Raheem Morris on the mind because.
Dude, I don't know. I did the same thing at the draft. We were covering the draft last week, and I kept saying, "Oh yeah, they got the Raheem Morris too," and people were looking at me like, did they cut Raheem Morris? No, they have Raheem Mostert.
Yeah. So there's just a lot in the way of Jalen Wright. That's more of a long-term pick looking down the road. But man, that future backfield, Jalen Wright could be just exactly what Devon Achane needs. Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
Like a 50-50
split? Each other need. Yeah.
50-50 split between those two guys. The problem is for fantasy football, it's going to be very hit or miss. Whereas Marshawn Lloyd's going to be in a much more solidified role in an offense that's going to want to run the ball. Miami wants to run the ball too, but this could what I'm saying is Marshawn Lloyd has a much clearer path to being the starter in 2025 and beyond than Jalen Wright does. I feel like Jalen Wright, as long as Devon Achane's there, he's always going to be competing for touches. It's a better NFL pick because you think about that Miami offense. It's the backfield's just stupid now with Jalen Wright and Devon Achane. Like that's exactly what they want. They just want to hand the ball off to somebody and say, go break a long touchdown run, please, because we just want explosive play after explosive play. And both those running backs can do that. It's just when you're in a redraft league or when you're in a dynasty league where you have to set your lineup, sure, Achane could go off for 50 like he did last year. Jalen Wright has the potential too, but there's also going to be games where where they get 2, 3, 5 points because the opportunities just aren't there. So I'm going to chase talent and opportunities. And I liked Marshawn Lloyd. I had Jalen Wright ranked ahead of him going into the NFL draft. But I like Marshawn Lloyd too. I think Marshawn Lloyd was just a little bit further down the list, a couple spots. So it really comes down to the situation and the pathway for opportunities. But let me kick it back to you. Like I'm looking at your sheet right now, and you have you have Jalen Wright in round 2 ahead of Jonathan Brooks.
Mhm.
So you really like this Jalen Wright landing spot.
I love the landing spot because we've talked about Cody and you. We've talked about how he doesn't really have the skill set to be a bell cow. He needs to be utilized in a high efficiency role. And I think we found that. And I think at running back, you'll take the 3s and 5s and 8s if it's parlayed with 20s and 30s. If it has these big spike weeks, you usually will take that out of your running back 2 spot. I will say the for my win sheet. And again, if you want to get our entire rookie draft win sheets, head over to the draftrankings.com. You'll get mine, Seth's, and Cody's. Right now, the way I have is a tier. Three running backs are in a tier for me. Brooks, Benson, and Wright. They're all pretty similarly laid out into the as opposed to the hurdles for 2024. I don't look at running backs past 24. That's why I'm fading Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd will be a massive trade candidate for me, buy candidate for me, probably by Halloween, by Thanksgiving, all this stuff. I will continuously buy shares of Lloyd throughout time, but I don't look at running backs over a course of a year. So I give the clearer path now. Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks, for me, they're in the tier with Jalen Wright, but Jalen Wright is in this weird spot that even if they don't get rid of a running back, I still like his pathway to 2024 production. Whereas right now, Brooks probably has the highest ceiling for role, but he's amongst a running back crew that it's 3 deep. Now, if they cut Miles Sanders, then all of a sudden he's going to creep up, probably to be my running back 1. But right now, Trey Benson just has James Conner. We know James Conner's a bit injury prone. He's getting older in his career. If he were to get hurt, I mean, we've seen Amari DiMercado. We've seen, Benjamin. We've seen other running backs be successful with this Cardinals with the offensive weapons in Arizona. So I love both of those landing spots. The thought right now having that right above Brooks is he's in a 3-headed monster with a recovery of an injury. So you put those two together. It's not like I hate him. I'm ready to push him up my boards if he comes out and practices and he's cleared for week 1. He's going to get all the reps and they cut Miles Sanders. But there's just too much what ifs to have him in my top 2 just yet.
There's so much upside with Jalen Wright because Devon Achane, I think, played in 11 games last year.
He got hurt twice. That was my point at the draft house when Theo was yelling at me about my love for the pick. I was like, Devon Achane was a guy that had injury red flags heading into his rookie year, and then he gets not hurt once, but he gets hurt twice, and all of a sudden we're going to forget that red flag exists. I kept saying was sometimes when you're right, you just got to be right and move on.
Sometimes when you're right, sometimes when you're right, you're just right. Sometimes right is right. 2 rights. I mean, they don't have another right. Maybe they can sign Brock Wright. I don't know, but 2 rights don't make a right. But you're right. Like the upside for Jalen Wright is off the charts. And the good news, I think, for dynasty rookie gamers or when you're in these rookie drafts is I don't think you're gonna I think it's very possible that if you like both of these guys, you're going to be able to get them both. One with your 2nd round pick and one with your 3rd round pick. Like, I guess the format's different. Like if you're in a 1 QB, that's probably a little trickier. But like I have just so everybody's aware, like I have Jalen Wright in the 3rd round. I have Marshawn Lloyd in the 2nd round, late 2nd, Jalen Wright early 3rd, behind some of these wide receivers. So it's probably possible, but some of these, I mean, and we'll probably get into them. And like later, where some of these running backs landed, like I'm looking at my round 3 right now, and the running backs, I'm just like blue.
Right.
Like I want all the they landed so well that I just even though they did get the day 3 draft capital, it's early day 3, so it's not the end of the world, and I just want to gobble up all these running backs, and Jalen Wright's one of them. I just so happen to have Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks ahead of him, but he's my RB5. I mean,
yeah.
So
I love my him. Next question for you is in round 1. But before I do, I just want to say something. I want to bring something up and just kind of get your opinion on it. This isn't about your win sheet. This is about trade strategy, rookie draft strategy. I was doing a rookie draft this morning with our friend Jason Allwine over at Wake and Take, and what I noticed was right about midway point of the 2nd, kind of where the Xavier Legette's, the Malachi Corley's, Ricky Pearsall's, Adonai Mitchell range of round 2. I'm looking to trade back and get multiple thirds. If I look at my board and I see a guy have the 303 and the 310, the 305 and the 307, I'm going to try to sell my late second to get 2/3 because I would rather double dip a Javon Baker and Ray Davis, a Isaac Garendo, and a Troy Franklin. I would rather double dip in round 3 than push my chips in for the AD Mitchells, the Ricky Pearsalls. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is that because that seemed too clear in this mock? I don't think it's going to be that way every single time. But what are your thoughts on just getting multiple thirds as opposed to taking a mid-second?
I love that. I mean, I would probably do that trade back in a heartbeat if somebody wants to come up for what they perceive to be the last in a tier. Maybe it's especially where Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette. Like I want almost zero Xavier Legette. I know there's an upside case to be made, but he broke out really late, and he's with this Carolina Panthers offense that is almost like. And this is going to be a terrible analogy. I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to kill me for it, but it's almost like the stepdad who abuses their kid, like is trying to make amends. He's trying to make amends.
Buys him a bike.
It doesn't just buy him a bike, but he's like, here's a squirt. Here's like a toy gun. Here's a Game Boy. I don't even.
Here's some wrestling action figures.
Yeah, like. And that's exactly what the Carolina Panthers are doing with Bryce Young right now. They put him through hell last year with nothing, with an offensive line that was terrible. And the best that they could give him last year was Adam Thielen to go with Terrace Marshall and Jonathan Mingo. And it was terrible. And they had Tommy Tremble there at tight end and Ian Thomas. I don't know if he was still there, but they had absolutely nothing. It was a terrible situation for him to walk into. And now they draft Xavier Legette. They trade for Deontay Johnson. They sign a $100 million guard. They sign another guard. They draft Tavian Sanders. They draft Jonathan Brooks. It's like they're just throwing as much shit at the wall, and they're seeing like what's going to stick and what's going to work because they have no fucking idea what they're doing as an organization. They have no clue. They're just trying as hard as possible to make Bryce Young into a good quarterback in the NFL, to make that investment pay off. And I think that's good for him in fantasy because guess what? I think he's good enough to make some of that work. Is it going to be perfect?
Talented.
Is it going to be perfect? No, but they're going to I'm kind of go off on a tangent here, but this is why I like Bryce Young as a buy low. This is why I like Jonathan Brooks because they're going to suck again. And they're going to be in all these negative game script situations again. And Jonathan Brooks is a talented pass catcher out of the backfield. And guess who's his offensive coordinator? Dave Canales. What did Dave Canales do? Rashad White, baby, last year. Rashad White breakout.
Didn't matter how inefficient he was. It was full steam ahead.
Yeah, so like when we're in these super flex drafts, when we're in these super flex leagues, I want Bryce Young, and I don't really care because he's getting all of his toys. The abuse is basically over with. I think he's going to be able to make something work. Last year he had nothing, and and he can run a little bit as well, not as much as we like, but. I don't remember where that started from, but yeah, the Carolina Panthers are like trying to make amends for all the abuse that they bestowed on Bryce Young.
David Tepper, the abusive stepfather. That's
exactly.
That's the lesson of the offseason. All right, we've been pulling up these 1 QB rookie win sheets. You can find them over at the draftrankings.com or the Executives of Fantasy Football Patreon. Seth, myself, and Cody Carpentiers all have our rookie win sheets out now. Let's ask each other one more question. We'll get on out of here today. First question I'm going to ask is back to the first round. So what I'm seeing here is a bit of a clusterfuck between a number of players. So I see on the same tier, you have Xavier Worthy, Caleb Williams, and Brock Bowers. So this is 1 QB. That's why Caleb is still here in the conversation. If you get essentially to the 104 in your league, are you now looking to trade back knowing that there are multiple options, or do you have a conviction here between Caleb, Bowers, and Xavier going at the 104?
I think it very much depends on team need. If you are in a single quarterback league and you need a quarterback, Caleb Williams is potentially your answer. Not just
that feels good to say, doesn't it?
Like
that feels pretty damn good to say. I'm Bears fan.
Set it and forget it, baby. Like potential top 5 option. I mean, we're talking about a guy with the arm talent of Aaron Rodgers, who's also a tactical scrambler, who's going to have rushing yards. I mean, this is for a Bears fan, been, I know, and people, no matter what I say about Caleb Williams, people are going to accuse me of, oh, he's a homer. He's looking at it through his Navy color glasses. But I've been shouting the praises of Caleb Williams for a long time now. And like, look at the weapons. Look at Roma Dunze. Look at Keenan Allen, I mean, it's comical. It's an embarrassment of riches. If the Carolina Panthers are the abusive stepfather, the Chicago Bears are the grandfather that just spoils their kids rotten. And that's what they've done with Caleb Williams in the best way possible. They've set him up for success, unlike any other quarterback that I've really ever seen. Better than Andrew Luck. Go look at what Andrew Luck had. He had Reggie Wayne, T.Y. Hilton, and I think like a decent tight end. And a terrible offensive line, by the way. The offensive line was horrible.
Quentin Nelson was not there. Ryan Kelly was not there. It was not the offensive line that we grew to know in Indianapolis.
Yeah, so I think it's potentially the best situation a number one pick's ever walked into, or it's got to be in the conversation. So I think it comes back to team need. I really do. If you're at the 104, at the 105, and you're like, I'm good at receiver. I don't really like where Brock Bowers landed. This is not a tight end premium format.
Yeah, you got Trey McBride, you got Sam Laporta, you got yourself a young tight end.
And you're sitting there with like Geno Smith at quarterback. I give you permission to take Caleb Williams. I want Caleb Williams. Like it's hard to get him in Superflex, but I've made a couple trades recently where I've secured the 101 for not a ton of, like, essentially I flipped the 202 and the 302 to go up a couple spots to get the 101. I'm cool with that. Because Caleb Williams, and this is my bold prediction, and again, Navy colored glasses, I'm going to get all of it. I don't care. Caleb Williams at some point in time is going to be the number one quarterback in Dynasty. Book it. Like, he's going to be, because he's young. Some of these other quarterbacks are going to get up, like Mahomes in a couple years. I'm not saying it's going to be this year, next year, like in like 3 or 4 years, we're going to look back and go, oh, Caleb Williams is better than CJ Stroud. He's better than some of these, like Anthony Richards. Like, he's going to be the quarterback one in Dynasty at some point in time because of the situation that he's in. Like, if he was playing for the Packers, as much as I would hate it, and in the same situation, like, this doesn't matter about the team. Like, it just matters.
No, it doesn't.
We have draft capital. We have all these weapons. We have he's in a great situation with a great coordinator. The Bears brought in a passing game coordinator as well, who got head coaching interviews. So again, I think this is your potential solution to have the upside at quarterback, even in a single quarterback league. So yeah, if it's between Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, Brock Bowers, and I'll talk about Brock Bowers. I absolutely hated this spot for Brock Bowers. I hate it. And I know some people are going to disagree, but you have Michael Mayer, who's already there, and they picked him at pick 34 last year, early in the second round. You have Devontae Adams, who's there. You have Jacoby Myers, who's there, who's still somehow one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. Like, this is somebody said it, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. He's like the Tyler Lockett of that situation.
Yeah,
he's like a Christian Kirk, but he's so undervalued and underrated, and is always on my dynasty buys list. But the problem for the Raiders in year one is going to be the quarterback. They didn't upgrade quarterback. Gardner Minshew proved that he can feed one receiver last year, right. Michael Pittman,
just one.
But that's going to be Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams is going to be a fine pick in redraft this year because of what Gardner Minshew can do. He can he can feed one receiver, but there's not going to be the target volume in what's going to be there's not going to be much pie there left over for a Brock Bowers in year one. And so what I would say to people who are like, no, Seth, you're wrong. Brock Bowers is amazing. He's the best tight end prospect ever. He's basically the Hercules of tight ends. He would kill them all with his bare hands if he could. He would pull their heart out of their chest and show it to them. Yeah, exactly. He would show it to them as they're slowly dying. Like, that's how good of a tight end he is. To those people, I would say, what's the rush, man? This is Dynasty. Don't draft him now. Trade for him in 2 years when he hasn't been productive. Like, that's what I would say. Like, where's the room for? Like, I want to know where the room is in this offense, because this is by the way, this is an offense that's going to want to run the ball as well. So again, I could be wrong about this, but I hate the situation for Brock Bowers. So that's why I'm fading him right now, because I think if I like him, and I'm not sure that I like him as much as some other people, I can just trade for him in a couple years when he disappoints people like most rookie tight ends do. Am I
Yeah.
crazy?
No, and actually, I got the SC hat on, so I'm full Caleb supporter too. I actually just moved him up on my win sheet. So go over to the draftrankings.com and get the full list. I just moved Caleb up because you sold me. He should be in conversations here with Worthy and Bowers. Worthy is going to be, if you're a gambler, you like the bungee jump, you like the skydive, go for it, because the upside's there. The rush is there, but the absolute crater floor is there. And I've been, Xavier Worthy is my wide receiver for the entire process. But I also understand the roller coaster ride that can ensue. And the Bowers thing, what I'm now starting to realize is the Bowers fall could get to a point where if I'm a perennial winner, I'm a team that has Travis Kelce with pride. I have him as my tight end. Bowers is now going to be in the range that you could get your contingency plan. You want to get your tight end of the future, and you have the roster to support burning a first round pick, and you've been the 112, you've been the 111, you're a good team. Bowers is going to be in sniffing distance now. If you want to go ahead and add Bowers now and not deal with the volatility of later, this might be something I start conjuring up, because I got a lot of Travis Kelce and a lot of dynasty leagues. And if Bowers starts falling to the 1-9, 110, 111, if I have the Kelce on those teams, I'm going to pounce, because then the pressure's off. He's just going to be put on my bench. He can just marinate till he's ready. It was a lot of the similar thoughts I had why I was trying to buy Kyle Pitts on those teams a year ago, because I thought we'd see an ascension by now. But still, the point is, Bowers is getting to a range where those teams might be interested. But if you're not one of those teams, you might be better off waiting and seeing what happens, because there's a lot to go around. Now, I'm not saying this, but it's just another cherry on top. It's just another potential issue. They also brought in Dylan Lobb. Now, I'm not going to say Dylan Lobby is going to be in the way of Travis Kelce. It's a fifth round. I mean, in Brock Bowers, he's a fifth round pick as opposed to the 14th overall pick. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying that. But I'm just thinking of diagnosing offenses. If you put a receiving back with the ability of a Dylan Lobby, it just kind of intersects with the point on the field in which Brock Bowers would be uber successful. So I just think that if we're just piling it on here for the reasons why it may not work right away, that is just yet another small reason, but a reason nonetheless. So Seth, take us out here. One more question about the win sheets, and then we're going to send these people off on their good days or Wednesday nights, whatever it is.
Well, and just one more point to that. I don't know. Like, I think now's a perfect time to go buy Michael Mayer, because I including me on draft night, the instant reaction is, "Oh, Michael Mayer's cooked." And I said those words live at the NFL draft.
The vibes are high. The vibes are high.
And you know what? And you know what happened? Like, a bunch of dynasty managers that I think are really good. And I've got Michael Mayer. Guess what they're trying to do? They're trying to trade. They're knocking on my door going, "Hey, what's the price for Michael Mayer now?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's because in these two tight end sets, there's still going to be volume for Michael Mayer. He's still going to he's still going to get a piece of the pie. And it wouldn't shock me that at the end of the day, like, we go to the end of the season and we go, "Oh man, Michael Mayer, like, he may not have scored as many fantasy points as Brock Bowers, but like, he still was involved in this offense." And I don't know. So Michael Mayer, I think, officially put on my buy list, because again, a tight end that got good draft capital just last year, and the Raiders, I don't know. Well, hopefully they have a plan for both of those guys. But go ahead.
As a Bears fan, you also know what Luke Getsy brings to the table.
Yes.
Is that going to be enough to diagnose a 12 personnel tight end the ball a lot? Is that going to be a guy that can handle the egos of the other receivers, two of which are making double-digit $1 million a year?
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into this, and it's a lot that I think the fade Brock Bowers noise is going to get super loud.
I think so too, and it's possible that you get them. I mean, I'm not saying like you shouldn't draft. I mean, it's all about ADP. Like, I'm fine.
It's all about team builds too. I mean,
yeah,
like you got yourself a Mark Andrews, something you want. You have a David Njoku, and he falls to the 201. Like, you kind of, there's a point where it gets silly.
Yeah. Well, so it's going to be dependent on your league. But one last question for you, Maddie, and I'm just going to tee this up for you to talk about whichever guy that you want, because I'm looking at your win sheet. I never stopped looking at your win sheet, by the way. I love how I'm saying that. Like, oh, I stopped looking at
I've been
it,
having
and
yours on the
I
screen
just
the entire time.
yeah, I literally had this spreadsheet pulled up the entire time. Like I went away to go look at InstaFace or whatever. I was literally scrolling and just not paying attention to you whatsoever. But I'll give you your choice. Like, you have two players that you're really high on. You have them both highlighted blue, one in the second round and one in the third round. You have Roman Wilson. I love this that you have the courage to do this. Roman Wilson ranked ahead of Brian Thomas Jr., and you have Javon Baker ranked ahead of Ricky Pearsall on these win sheets. Do you want to like pick one, pick a lane, choose your own adventure? Which street do you want to meander down?
So as of right now, Roman Wilson is my wide receiver 7. Roman Wilson is a guy that I think went to the best spot that he could have. If he just falls into the Deontay Johnson role, we're looking at a mega producer in 1 point PPR. If he falls into what we believe which is an enhanced role, given his speed and the ability of Russell Wilson to get the ball open to people down deep. You brought up Tyler Lockett earlier. I think Roman Wilson falls into a Tyler Lockett-esque connection with Russell Wilson. We saw Tyler Lockett time and time again be a productive wide receiver in fantasy with Russell Wilson. And on top of both those things, they drafted not 1, not 2, but 3 very quality offensive linemen. Their offensive line now, if we're projecting here, but it projects to potentially be the best in the AFC North from jump after these additions. So he's going to have time to hit Roman Wilson deep. He's going to have time to hit Roman Wilson over the middle. And I just think the volume is going to be there. Remember, Deontay Johnson was also a 3rd-round pick. I know we're talking about the 302 to the 320. There's a difference of 18 picks there, but in that range, it's very comparable. So I just think he just gets to a great role, a great situation. And I'll be honest, I have a bias. I have a particular archetype that I gravitate to. Can get open, separation, and PPR monster ability. And Roman Wilson checks all those boxes. And then when you talk about the intangibles, and this, to toot our own horns, the theme of the show, let's toot our own horns. This is why you come to the executives of fantasy football. This is why you come to Seth, myself, because we're not just talking about the analytics. We're not just talking about what we see on film, but we're also the sickos that read into the people that play the game, the situations, the way, the art of team building, the art of player development. And a guy like Roman Wilson is going to develop well in a system run by Mike Tomlin. I'm sorry. I know I can't quantify that. It's bro science to the max, but you will never get me to think that Mike Tomlin doesn't get 99th percentile skills out of a guy like Roman Wilson. It's a match made in heaven. He was at the Senior Bowl. He saw Roman Wilson call out the best cornerback, the best player that week in Quinyon Mitchell and win. He is just in a spot to smash. So I love Roman Wilson. Right now, I have him at wide receiver 7, but I could see him go as high as my wide receiver 6 or 5 based on how I see Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman develop with their new teams. And Javon Baker, the reason why I have him over Ricky Pearsall is Javon Baker is in a situation where the winner of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker is going to be nasty in fantasy. They're going to be target monsters, big play abilities. So I've kind of taken the cheap route. I've kind of backed out here. I got Baker and Polk 11 and 12 in my rookie ranks. One of them will fall, but one may rise depending on who wins that job, who wins it. Or if Drake May just proves it, listen, I can feed multiple people. Here's Pop Douglas getting a little bit over the middle. I can hit the guys deep. I love what they bring to the table. And I think that and just in terms of prospect profiles, Ricky Pearsall wasn't arm and legs better than Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. He was faster. He was more impressive through the draft process because we all know what the process is. It's speed, 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 speed. The NFL just looks for speed. But when you look at cleanness of route running, Javon Baker looked pretty damn good down in Mobile, just as good as Ricky. And we've seen the yards per route run at UCF. Jalen Polk, the alpha of a championship team over in Washington, these intangibles matter. And I think that I really, really like Javon Baker, but I love Roman Wilson.
And you think about Pittsburgh for a second. I think Ryan Poles has been one of the best GMs in Bears history. What was the team that just absolutely fleeced Ryan Poles? it was Pittsburgh when they traded
Mhm.
Chase Claypool away to him, and people forget about that. But this is a team that just year after year after year, okay, we'll trade Chase Claypool, we'll bring in another wide receiver. Oh, we'll trade away Deontay Johnson, we'll bring in Roman Wilson. It's just a factory that just keeps on chugging along, and so it's just such a great call by you. And what they were able to do on the offensive line, they know who they have. Russell Wilson likes to hold the ball. He likes to
Yep.
throw the ball down the field. They
So
want to
does
run
Justin Fields.
so does
That's where
just
he excelled at OSU.
exactly. And
He wasn't the scrambling guy as a Buckeye. He was a sit, wait, and chuck deep at OSU.
Yep, and now they add Roman Wilson and all those offensive linemen to go with George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, and Jalen Warren in the backfield. That all of a sudden you're looking at that offense. I think it's going to be Russell Wilson. This is another reason why at the top of the show I was talking about Russell Wilson. I
Yeah.
don't understand this ADP. I get it. Justin Fields is younger and potentially has more upside, especially from a fantasy perspective. But all of a sudden, Russell Wilson has to be looking at his situation in Denver and now his situation going, Denver.
Denver. Yeah.
Look at me now, bitches. Look at me now. Like, who cares? Like, you cut me. You cut me. And now I just literally went to the team that's going to make the playoffs next year while you guys are going to be with Bo Nix. Nix.
With a mediocre offensive line and in
Yeah.
an underdeveloped defense in a conference that is just going to be fast, and now a little bit of toughness added with Jim Harbaugh. So yeah, Russell Wilson is laughing all the way to the bank, and you guys should be laughing all the way to the bank as you go over to the draftrankings.com, get our rookie win sheets, and start getting a leg up on your league mates now. He's Seth _ Let me start that over. He's Seth _ Diewold on Twitter. I'm Matty Kiwoom on Twitter. We are the executives of fantasy football. Make sure you're subscribed to the executives of fantasy football YouTube channel. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and we'll see you next week. Cody, we'll miss you. We'll see you next time. Peace.